Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to perhaps one of the greatest loves of my life. Dalmatians. That poor thing, look at him. Is he white with black dots, or is he black with white stripes or patches or whatever? He looks like he's having a heck of a time, and I've kind of questioned a few things about this album, to be the cover, just for 1 second. Is that just like random like strips of just grass with just some out of place fire hydrant just parked in there? Because this doesn't look, that fire hydrant looks like it was just put there for no reason. You know what I mean? And also, why is it like small? So it's like a small box inside the rest of the album. In fact, you know what? I have to keep checking myself, because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's right. I completely forgot I actually still have this. Yep, and see right here. I knew I had this like long before. Really, and it's the remastered one as well. So that's something. I keep forgetting I have these just before like really CDs sort of like went. Out of function, you know what I mean? They were kind of like I don't think CDs are 100% obsolete, but I might play that, you know, when I'm driving tomorrow to work. It's pretty cool, that. So, and I'm pretty sure, and I've also got moving pictures up there as well. So, if you remember, 4 years ago, well, actually, I think it was more 3 years ago, if I'm being completely honest. It'll be a lot longer than that by the time you see this. This, for me, I'd already started my Rush journey through 2112 and moving pictures. This right here was the one that sort of cemented the complete identity of Rush before my eyes, but one in which I now got exactly what these guys were all about. Neo, Alex, and Geddy. Perhaps the best thing to ever come out of Canada since probably Justin Bieber, to be honest. Justin Bieber is actually... I have listened to quite a bit of Justin Bieber, to be honest, in the last couple of weeks. Nowhere near as bad as I made out 3 years ago. So, considering 40 years, as of the time of this recording, has passed by since Signals has came out, it's time to see whether or not, after 3+ years, this still holds up, because... If you remember anything about my classic Rush reviews, I put these guys in very high esteem because of their level of relatability, their level of thought-provoking ideas. It's all about Neil, God rest his soul, and his marvelously kind of vindictive look on the outside world, but he's also very, very hopeful. And there's a lot of things that like we'll come to see, like Circumstances and Cinderella Man, before Eminem, Marshall Matthews took a look at it. But if we're being completely fair, ladies and gentlemen, you guys know what you want, I know what I want. Why don't we just get started, shall we? So, our second entrant into our album assault in this marvelous and auspicious occasion of RageCon 3. So let's do this, shall we? If you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. And of course, the only problem would be like wearing this jacket. I haven't worn this jacket in so many years, but it kind of like flexes outwards. So I kind of like have to like almost move my poppy just right here, just so that it's sort of like covering right the lightning. But I think this will do pretty well. So let's begin, shall we? Subdivisions in 3, 2, 1, and oh, and it's glorious, it's great already. I don't want to like really. I've stopped getting into the habit of like pausing in certain points for like songs and all that. But that's just how it begins. And I know again, it's probably this has been said to death already. You learn things just by using your senses. Anytime Neil does anything, I am paying attention. I have got like even more when I'm driving, but to be honest, when listening to Rush, there's nothing more important than listening to Rush right now. Is that I've got a very, very concentrated job to do, because for those who know what's up, those who know what it's like for Rush fans, you hang on every word. You know what I mean? You hang on every action. There's not one thing I can honestly think Rush does that's meant to be out of place. I think these guys go above and beyond. And if it sounds like I'm singing their praises, I've been listening to Rush for 3.5 years. What's your point is? You know what I mean? But yeah, I am in my element, just as these guys are. Still the best drummer who ever lived, Neil Peart. God rest his soul. Just at the city. dreams of you. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Subdivisions by Rush, and I honestly, I'm startled, really, ladies and gentlemen, because to be honest, first of all, I love whenever they get into talk about geometric terms, just because I don't know why, but that's sort of like, that's a very underrated sort of aspect in terms of like prog rock, is that you can really go above and beyond to describe the mundane using almost excitingly mundane words like geometric order and insulated border in between the bright lights and the far lit unknown. And then, of course, you've got the entire point of the song, in my opinion, is about laying out almost the cold, hard reality in the eyes of some people, that life is taken into a quantitative perspective. If you give too much to one person, you get a happy person, you don't get a good person. If you give, they'll be happy because you're getting way more than somebody else, or you're giving them too much. Let's say, like education, for example. If you give somebody too much education, you give them too much knowledge. You give them too much knowledge, they will start to think. You let them start to think, they'll start to think outside of what they know. They'll start, and that is, I think, honestly, the average Rush fan is that they see, I think people like me and maybe other Rush fans out there, they see life is a little bit, is bloody tragically kind of like that. Things are decided for us, not because we don't deserve a fair chance, but because people have decided this is as much of a chance as we are allowed to have. Because if we give people too much, they're going to start knowing too much. And when they start knowing too much, they'll start, and you've probably heard me reference this before, one of my absolute favorite lines in verses in all of music is from a Paul Weller song called The Changing Man. It's, the more I see, the more I know, the less I understand. And that, honestly, sometimes I think that's, even to this day, I'm very much like that. And back when I was only 21 and I was going through Rush for the very first time, I was taking a lot of things in. I was a university senior when I started getting into Rush. When I started getting into prog rock, metal, all the rest of it. I was only 21 years old. I was a child. I was a kid, basically, when I did all this. And to be honest, well, I say kid. I've been a man since I was 18, but I feel like I know even less about the world now than probably even back then. And back then, I was coming out with phrases like, I don't even think I've even scratched the surface or seen the very fringe of the sort of things people can write about life. And because it gets even worse than that. Growing up, it all seems so one-sided. Opinions all provided. The future pre-decided. Detached and subdivided. Everything is literally boiled down to cold, dickless numbers. Money. And all the rest of it. Because again, 40 years have gone by since Signals came out. I have honestly got, and maybe if I lived for another 40 years, I'll probably be looking back and saying that, well, really not much else has changed, so why am I even surprised at this? But that's the beauty of songs like Subdivisions. Yes, they are saying us exactly what it is, but they can also take some creative liberties. Now, and I think, again, when you're doing in music, you do one of the performing arts, I think you have to take some liberties, or at least do it in a way that is not only informative, but also encourages the listener's imagination. This is again, like continuing my education, is that you learn more about the things you don't understand. Like, why are some things the way they are? In fact, if you want me to go even further, you see all of those books I've got up there, not the ones I've got up there. I think I've shown this. There are things I've got up there. In fact, I'll get one down. I think that's what I'll do. I'll get one down, because I've got things about poetry as well that might also enlighten us on this subject. But there is also oh, here it is. This one is, to be honest, I could probably go through a lot of these about the short introduction series about human rights, chaos theory, free will, political philosophy, Hinduism, happiness, witchcraft, autism, modern war, modern society, literary theory, and then, of course, it's probably down to groups like Rush. It's why they've got me into Nietzsche, Professor Stanley Groff, Freud, Goldman, Mr. Owen Jones, Joey Corman, Dr. Gareth Moore, Craig Haas. There's friggin' thousands of things up here, and then of course there's going along here, and where's my my Amy Jeff's book Storyland, which is about ancient English legends. But here is probably one of the more poignant ones as well of this, Civilization and Its Discountenance by Sigmund Freud, a book I've owned for, I think, 2 years now, if I'm being completely correct. And some things, in fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. I want to do a little discussion about civilization and society, and I'll probably have a lot of Rush and a lot of Freud to back us up on this, because, to be honest, if we're going to learn something out of this, then I think we need to take our education and go a little bit further than this. I think we should be always trying to learn something. I don't ever want my reaction videos to ever feel stale, old, predictable, the same things time after time. I think we should actually try and make ourselves better. The best democracy is a well-informed democracy. Now, let us begin our little subdivisional discovery. To take a fundamental aspect of society as in the first place, why do some problems like poverty, misery and abuse, crime, why do those things exist at all? Because there have been probably a lot of people throughout history, many people who have come, many people who are alive now, and many people who will come after them. Either they'll be born directly from them, or from some direct influence, or for some opportunistic opportunities in the future, or now would say that everybody wants their share. If we take the idea of socialism as a whole, if you picture socialism is like a boat holding 20 people, and there are 10 oars on each side. If every single person held onto an oar and they all rowed in tandem, it means everybody was doing their share, and eventually they would get where they need to go, so they would be rewarded accordingly because they're all going in the same direction. Which, that might be a very, very loose way of describing socialism, but I think that's the definition I'm kind of accepting. But because there is no such thing as like equality or perfect or really perfect equality as we would understand it, a world without prejudice, a world without hatred, a world without hunger, starvation, neglect, abuse, sexual abuse, class warfare, race hatred, religious intolerance. If we had solutions to all that, then we just about put every police station, every magistrate, we put basically all of them out of business all over the world. They exist most prominently, including like social services and all the rest of them, is because the world is not full of perfect people. We can't build a perfect society with people who hold grievances, hold violent tendencies towards other people, and who will do things like hurt, abuse, steal from the rest of the world. And there are plenty of people who steal for gain, for profit, for revenge, all those sorts of things. There are thousands of people. It's probably going on right now as we speak, this very second. There's somebody committing a crime of whatever, and there are many other reasons again to add to this. Whether or not some people are impoverished and they need to do what they can to steal what they can to get by day after day, because sometimes when you're actually at the poverty line, you can only ever think about getting from day to day because you can't really think much beyond that. And some people will literally get so boiled over like a pound, for example, or something even more petulant, like they might be several seconds late for work. Now, to be honest, I fall into that category because I'm a very punctual person. I hate being late for things. I want to be as early as possible. And I've had this all the way down to my childhood. As far as like when I was like 7 to 8 years old, I had this. And I probably will carry this to my grave because I like the idea that you should turn up early, you should do what you need to do, and you'll be able to do more of it now that you have more time, if that makes sense. And it's the sort of thing I think a lot of people look for. A lot of things that people look forward to if they want to create a perfect society is, how do you create a model? How do you create somebody who reflects the ideas of what a good society or a well-informed democracy should be? Now, take me, for example, which, again, I'm not going to try and get too pretentious about this for once. For once, yeah, of course, who would have thought that? But I like I said before, I like the idea of being early, of being punctual, the idea that you could do more if you have more time. The fact that you should not waste your time as well is a very, very big player in all this. You should make the most of what you have because it's for the good of other people. I think the idea is that the sort of things, the things that I do should in some way be of benefit to somebody else. If they're not going to actually benefit me, then better they benefit somebody else. For example, and this is one of the best things I probably would encourage anyone really to do. And I know there are a lot of people who are very skeptical about the idea of charity, because charity is the sort of thing that you're expected to absolutely get nothing from it at all. The idea is that you give something that you have absolutely no need or use for and give it to somebody who would find use or find some benefit with it. I always donate whenever I go to a small little corner shop where I work in Wallsend. I always give whatever change I'm given whenever I pay cash to the St. Oswald's Foundation, just because it's the one bucket they have there just to put the money in. And it was largely created to lie because it was one of the pillars of Islam that decrees that you should always give about a quarter of your change to charity. And even as a Roman Catholic, I must say, I think that's a tremendous idea. I'm very, very much on board with it because the idea, and bringing religion into this for 1 second, and I'll get back into subdivisions just for a second. Drawn like moths, we drift into the city, the timeless old attraction. The attraction because the light looks so bright, we are drawn so heavily towards it. And maybe, again, that's my idea for like charity. I'm drawn towards it because there's something in it that always makes you, I think it's the satisfaction, or rather you feel good about yourself for doing good for other people. And maybe some of you guys have that attitude towards my videos, I don't know, or whether it's just towards Rush, or whenever you see me talking about Rush. You're drawn towards it because you want somebody to relay opinions, maybe you want them to hear something different, perhaps they've never considered before. And that was why all those years ago I loved doing Rush, because I often consider myself like heavily suppressed in terms of like ideologies whenever I was at university. I never really considered the idea that anything I had to say or do whatsoever was of any use to any person, whatever. But I like to imagine that, no, actually, you know what? I think there are quite a lot more people who listen to me than I'm giving credit for, and more than probably I'm even willing to admit. Because, you know what? If there's even one person out there who's listening to this or even listens to Rush at all, I think that would make all the difference. Some will sell their dreams for small desires, or lose the race to rats. I love the subverted play on rat race right there. That's the sort of thing we deal with. Get caught in ticking traps and start to dream of somewhere to relax their restless flight, somewhere out of a memory, or lighted streets on quiet nights. I love the idea of just the coldness, really, of describing just cities, streets, shopping malls, cars. Everybody is like really in the same boat in many ways, and this is the difference I had from when I did Subdivisions the first time back in 2019 to where we're doing it now in 2022. Back then, I describe it as like the person who is subconsciously aware that the world around them seems like cold, calculated, like it was not a very exciting or a very, there wasn't much point in thinking or trying, because we always kind of like felt confined to our environment, whether we liked it or not. Nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, I'm thinking of perhaps thousands of people are thinking the exact same thing. Maybe everybody has the desire to escape, because when you think about it like that, this really covers the entire scope of Rush's level of intellectual consideration, because it's not just on themselves, and it isn't just lost on themselves. It's probably on other people as well. Maybe it's on other people's minds without even thinking about it. The routine of just getting up in the morning, going to work, so maybe having breakfast with your family or with the people who are just there, then coming home, having dinner, then going to sleep, maybe having a shower, maybe getting in the morning, forgetting to brush your teeth. Sometimes literally brushing your teeth may be the only thing that's on your mind so much because there's absolutely nothing better to think about. That is, if there ever comes to a point in my life where forgetting to brush my teeth in the morning is literally the only thing I can think about and it's going to ruin the rest of my day, then I think my life has absolutely no purpose to it at all. And people are crying out. They want purpose. They want some kind of meaning in their lives. They don't want to go from the cradle to the grave thinking that there was absolutely no point to their life. There was nothing better to pursue. There's nothing to feel good about or anything like that. Because, again, when you think about it, we're human beings. We want to be happy. We don't want to be miserable, and we don't want to think that other people are living in misery. That's not really how it works, in my opinion. We should be. That's why I think, again, coming back to this all these years later, and I come back with a much different attitude, is sort of what I almost think I should have been saying from the first, is that it's not just about whether or not I felt like I was neglected, or whether or not I felt other people will always have it wrong about me because they don't care, or they just rather be popular or anything like that. In fact, that's maybe, I almost like to imagine, strangely enough, ladies and gentlemen, the people who become popular, they don't do it because, they want to be famous. They just want somebody to listen to them. If you want the most perfect example of this, ladies and gentlemen, you should check out when Jeremy Paxman interviewed Jerry Springer on Newsnight back in 2014. It's because Jeremy Paxman asked Jerry Springer, why do people go on the Jerry Springer show? And Jerry came out with saying that it's not about the Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame. He doesn't think that. He thinks the reason is that many of the people who go on the Jerry Springer show have kids that don't listen to them, have parents who don't listen to them. So for maybe a week or maybe even a day in their lives, they actually have people who listen to them, who listen to their problems, relationships, gang culture, crime, whatever that might be. And many of these people, it's like the first time they've ever been on a plane. Many of them don't even use their real names. They just go, they fly all the way to New York and they just stand in the studio and they just do what they have to do. And some of them even asked Jerry after the show's like wrapped up, saying that, hey, where's a good place to eat in Brooklyn, or is it far to go to Times Square, or all the rest of it. And Jerry even admitted that he even likes quite a lot of the people, not all of them, who appear on his show. But that's bloody tragic if that's the reason why. But I think that's a very important thing to state, is that it doesn't just stretch out to the people who are unconscious of perhaps maybe their life isn't particularly very purposeful, but what about the people who have almost nothing, who have even less than that? It's just a day-to-day struggle, and it's a world in which they of their own making, perhaps, or it's another world of just misery and degradation. And I think I just want to call all this out, because I'm pretty sure this absolutely must have played on Neil Peart like a lot, because Neil Peart strikes me as the sort of person who liked school, but not for the reasons in which he actually was going there for. Like, when I was going to school, I expected to get an education, and I was largely met by people who really couldn't care that much about education, but who still came out of it with really high grades, which almost made me feel as if like the last thing that was on their mind was making sure everybody else was getting their education. And I felt the victim of this literally to this very day. I feel like I was like robbed in some small way, but because of the person of who I was, or like 8 years ago, possibly, no, 12 years ago, to be honest, I feel like I was just, if I had a voice whatsoever, if I spoke like I did now back in like 2010, I absolutely would have been a very different sort of person, because it's a dreadful feeling, because that was like bad. That was really bad. And just before we close out, ladies and gentlemen, I kind of wanted to give another little bit about from Freud. I want to point out something very, very specific. If that makes sense. Oh, here we go. Here's something that might help us out. One of what have been called the ideal demands of civilized society may put us on the right track. It runs, "Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself." It is famous the world over, and certainly older than Christianity, which puts it forward as its proudest claim, but assuredly not very old, for in historical times it still struck people as strange. We will approach it naively, as if we were hearing it for the first time. We shall then be able to suppress a sense of surprise and bewilderment. Why should we behave in this way? What good will it do to us? But above all, how shall we manage to act like this? How will it be possible? My love is something I value and must not throw away irresponsibly. It imposes duties on me, and in performing these duties, I must be prepared to make sacrifices. If I love another person, he must in some way deserve it. I will disregard whatever use he may be to me, and whatever importance he may have for me as a sexual object. These two kinds of relationship have no relevance to the injunction to love my neighbour. He deserves it if, in certain important respects, he so much resembles me that in him I can love myself. He deserves if he is so much more perfect than myself, that I can love him in an ideal image of myself. I must love him if he is my friend's son. For the pain my friend would feel if any harm befell him would be my pain too. I should have to share it. But if he is a stranger to me and cannot attract me by merit of his own or by any importance he has acquired in my emotional life, it becomes hard for me to love him. Indeed, it would be wrong of me to do so, for my love is prized by my family and friends, as a sign of my preference for them. To put a stranger on par with them would be able to do them an injustice. Yet if I am to love him with this universal love, just because he is a creature of this earth, like an insect, an earthworm, or a grass snake, then I fear that only a modicum of love will fall to his share, and certainly not as much as the judgment of my reason entitles me to reserve for myself. What is the point of such a portentous precept of its fulfillment cannot commend itself as reasonable? On closer inspection, I find still more difficulties. The stranger is not only altogether unlovable, I must honestly confess that he has a greater claim to my enmity, even to my hatred. He appears to have not the least love for me, and shows me not the slightest consideration. If it is his advantage, he has no hesitation in harming me, nor does he ask himself whether the magnitude of his advantage is commensurate with the harm he does me. Indeed, it need not bring him any advantage at all. If he can merely satisfy some desire by acting in this way, he will think nothing of mocking, insulting, or slandering me, or using me as a foil to show off his power. The more secure he feels, and the more helpless I am, the surer I can be of his behaving towards me like this. If he acts differently towards me, a stranger, and treats me with consideration and forbearance, I am in any case ready to repay him like coin without any injunction to do so. Indeed, if this grandiose commandment were to read, "Love thy neighbour as thy neighbour loves thee," I should have no quarrel with it. There is another commandment that I find even more unintelligible, and that causes me to rebel with it fiercely. It runs, "Love thine enemies." But on reflection, I see that I am wrong to reject it as still a greater presumption. Essentially, it is no different. Now, the thing I'm going to relate to Subdivisions, just to close this out, is that in many respects, whatever we're really told about how we view a perception of society, or how our ideas of like how society is governed, whether it's by some higher authority who's decided that life should be decided these ways so that everybody is taught in this sort of way, and that people can only go forwards, left, right, or back. Or you even get lines, because it comes into lines like this, where, again, we put this in an educational perspective for just to close out. Any escape might help to smooth the unattractive truth, but the suburbs have no charms to soothe the restless dreams of youth. We know we are about because we dream, ladies and gentlemen. We dream of perhaps a much better world. But how do we imagine or visage a better world? Subconsciously, unconsciously, we have to know what a better world is because of what a better world is not. And it's almost too easy to come to considerations that we take the ugliest aspects of our society, or the things we are just simply unsatisfied with, and we put them in place. That is almost exactly where Subdivisions comes in, because maybe for people like me, maybe for people like you, you've seen too much of it enough to not only say that this makes way too much sense, but because maybe we just were too stupid to not even see this sooner. But I disagree with the idea of calling Rush fans stupid, or any fans of any music taste for that matter. I think there's a lot of work to do, but I hope, ladies and gentlemen, we can do it together. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video to Subdivisions by Rush. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Subdivisions for yourselves. And I cannot wait to talk with you guys again in the next video. Take care and bye-bye for now.